Okay, we are set up. Give me a second because we're in an airport right now, and I just have to make sure the settings are done properly. Okay, looks like everything is pathetic. Okay, so welcome. I'm in the Atlanta airport, getting ready to fly out in a little while, but I have some time to give class, so I don't want to miss the class. And so we're going to start. And so let's start by chanting. And obviously, I can't chant that loud because I'm in the airport. So you just do Jaiva Dharma. Jaya Radha Madhova Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhova Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhova Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Rajajanuranjana Yasodhanandana Rajajanuranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Ram Umadava Punjabi Hari Jaya Ram Madhuva Punjabi Hari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhadikacharya All Subteta Santashi Shimad His Divine Grace Savaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahashila Prabhupada Vijay ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Vijay Nantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Vijay Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Vijay Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Vijay Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopikapada Sai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Maturanam Ki Jai, Jagadava Sami Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Shivadikala Siddeva Ki Jai, Kamaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Go, Rivananda Hari Hari Go. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarni Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, we're going to go on with our reading of the Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Now, I'm in an airport right now, So I'm going to try to keep this class a little shorter, maybe a lot shorter than it normally is, but I thought we should miss a class, no matter what. Even if I'm in an airport waiting to take a plane. The plane is not for at least an hour or two, so I have time. So let's go on to the Jaiva Dharma. Om Ganat Chivananda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmiditav Yena Tasmai Shigurave Maha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual masters, divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let us share the screen. Here we go. And just get it set up. So we're talking about the constitution of the Jiva soul. And also in that context, we're talking about Prakriti, that is material energy, Pradhana, which we're going to hear about in a second, and Krishna, of course, and the Jiva soul. Actually, I mentioned that already. So the question right now is, what is the action of Pradhana? First, let me explain what Pradhana is. Pradhana is the unmanifest stage of the material energy. It is something like uh, clay, a lump of clay that doesn't mean anything, doesn't show anything, there's no purpose to it, unless a conscious entity takes that clay and shapes it into a particular form. So that's pradhana. So here's the answer. Babaji said, when the prakriti of Maya Shakti is agitated by time action of the Lord, the first Mahatattva arises. Pradhana, a function of Maya, when agitated, in other words, agitated by the time factor, which is the glance of the Lord. Sometimes it's described as Shambhu or Lord Shiva. When agitated, creates substances, dravya. When the Mahatattva transforms because of the pradhana being activated, ahankara arises. What is ahankara? Ahankara is I and mine, the false sense of identity. It's false ego. When tamasika, ahankara, transforms, then ether arises, which is the most subtle form of the Pancha Mahabhuta. When ether transforms, air arises. So we just talked about the transformation or the manifestation of the different elements, the different categories of elements. By transformation of air, fire arises. By transformation of fire, water arises. By transformation of water, earth arises. All material substances arise in this manner. They're called the five gross elements. Pancha Maha Bhuta. Pancha means five great Maha Bhuta elements. So there's here about the creation of the five subtle elements. On mantras. Now, you're going to hear what they are right now. Don't have to remember all this, but it's quite interesting. Time, kala, that's Krishna's glance. Krishna says in the Gita, what? Kala asmi, or kala asmi, I am time. Time, kala, agitates the function of ignorance, avidya, in prakriti, of its material energy, in ignorance, and manifests tendencies for jnana and karma. Jnana means like the desire for liberation and also the desire for knowledge. And karma means the desire for acquiring things in this world and enjoying in a gross way, not just a subtle way. Jnana is more subtle. Mahatattva's tendency for karma transforms, though through and through. Rajas, sattva, and rajas produces knowledge and action. Transforming in this way, Mahatattva produces ahankara. I don't expect anyone to remember this, but it's interesting to find out how the subtle forms of the material elements activate each other. When ahankara, that means the conception of false ego, I am the enjoyer, I am the proprietor, transformed, intelligence appears. So this is material intelligence, rajasic or action portion. When intelligence transforms, the quality of sound manifests in ether. When sound transforms, the quality of touch appears. So these are the anmatras, which means the quality of each of the material elements of earth, water, fire, air, ether. Air has the qualities of touch and sound. Prana, ojas, and bala are created with strength and health, and life airs are created from air. When touch transforms into form, in fire there is form, touch, and sound. Fire transforms and taste appears. In water there is taste, form, sound, touch, and sound. Taste transforms and smell appears. In earth there is smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. The order of these actions is arranged by the Lord in the form of consciousness. In other words, the Lord is the very form of consciousness, and he arranges the manifestation of these different elements this is the, I guess you would say, this is the uh, uh, creation of the cosmos, the Big Bang, so to speak. So this is actually analyzing how the Big Bang takes place. Ahankar, false ego, has three types. Vaikarika, sattvika, that means mode of goodness. Taijasika, rajasika, mode of passion. And tamasa, mode of ignorance. So Vaikarika ahankara means ahankara or uh, false ego in the mode of goodness gives rise to the elements. From Taijasika ahankara arise the 10 senses, passion. There are two types of knowledge, of senses, sorry. Knowledge gathering senses and action senses. In other words, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin are knowledge acquiring or gathering senses, and the voice, the hands, feet, anus, and genital are the senses of action. These are the 10 senses. And also the mind is sometimes considered a sense too. As Krishna says, Manakshastani Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. Then the mind, he considers the mind one of the senses, even though it's the controlling factor of the senses. Even though the five gross elements and subtle elements combine, as long as the conscious particle jiva does not enter, they do not operate. It's interesting. When the jiva, so in other words, there's nothing that happens. They're combining like a chemical reaction, but nothing really happens. When the jiva, a particle in the ray of the Lord's glance, that's another point. When Krishna glances as the Mahavishnu at the material creation, within that glance is the time factor and also the jiva souls. And the jiva souls, that's us, are implanted in the material creation by the action of Shambhu or Lord Shiva. Because that glance of the Lord, which is constituted the jivas, is actually Lord Shiva. Wow. So Lord Shiva is the combined, in one sense, you could say, is a manifestation of the combined totality of the jivas who are going to be in the material world. So this, the Lord's glance and spreads in the body made of gross and subtle elements, the activities of the body start. In other words, when the soul gets in it, then we start to perform different activities. It's pretty simple. Just the terminology may be quite difficult. When the Vaikarika and Taijasa qualities, that's the goodness and passion, combined with the Tamasika substance, transformed from pradana, they become suitable for action. In this way, one should consider actions of ignorance and pradana. In other words, he's defining his terms. Little technical. So I think we'll go a little quickly through this. There are 24 material elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, 5 gross elements: smell, taste, form, touch, sound. 5 ton-mantras are subtle elements: the 10 knowledge and action senses: mind, chitta, intelligence, mahatattva, and ahankara. The conscious jiva is the 25th factor of the body. The supreme lord is the 26th factor. So what's being dealt with here is something called Sankhya. This is the Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya, the word Sankhya means to count. Incidentally, the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is sometimes entitled Sankhya Yoga. And Sankhya, when we're talking about the Shadarshanas, the 6 different darshans, the Sankhya are counting the different material elements and the conscious jiva, which is the 25th factor, and the Supreme Lord, which is the 26th factor. Sankhya goes very well with yoga, the hatha yoga process, because that's what, when people do hatha yoga, they actually do an analysis of these different elements. Okay, so please explain which part, Rajana said, please explain which part of the human body of 7 times 9 inches, anyway, about 5.5 feet, is occupied by the subtle and gross elements, and which part of the body is occupied by the jiva. So the 5 gross elements, that 5 town mantras and 10 senses, are the gross body. Gross body means the things you can touch, like made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Mind is mind, intelligence, and also go. The mind, chitta, buddhi, and ahankara are the subtle bodies. Yeah, that's better. It is the conscious jiva which in the body produces the false identity of I and mine and has fallen from the understanding of his swarup, or his real nature, because of that false identity. The jiva is very subtle, that's us. The jiva is beyond time, space, and gunas. Being subtle by nature, he pervades the whole body. In other words, our nature is subtle, it's not gross. So that's why if you do a microscopic investigation of the body, or you tear the whole body apart, or whatever, or look into the heart, you're not going to see the jiva. If one applies a drop of sandalwood oil to one part of the body, it easily spreads throughout the body. That's interesting because the sandalwood oil pierces through the skin. Similarly, small jiva is aware of the body and experiences happiness and suffering of the body. So, Rajanath said, if the jiva is the doer experiencing karma and happiness, how is the Lord the doer? It's a really interesting question. So, are we the doer or is the Lord the doer? Babaji said, the jiva is the hetu karta, direct cause, and the Lord is the payojagat karta, instigating cause. So, what does that mean, instigating cause? That means, according to the jivas, that's us, our desire, Krishna gives us specific intelligence and direction to fulfill that desire, and that's the instigating cause. In other words, Krishna says, not speaking so much, but in the heart, as described in 15:15 in the Gita, that when you have some desire, Krishna gives you specific intelligence and direction how to fulfill that particular desire. So you've got to be careful what you desire. Because if you desire something that is not good for you, you may get that too. The jiva is the doer of his actions and thus deserves the immediate results. The doer of the actions, in a sense that he desires, the Lord gives him intelligence, the Lord gives him strength, the Lord gives him the ability to do that. He also deserves the future karma. The Lord is a doer in the sense of being the instigating cause, arranging for the immediate results of the action to produce those results. The Lord gives the results, and the jiva is the enjoyer of the results, or sufferer of the results, as the case may be. So, Rajana said, how many types of conditions does the bound jiva have? And Babaji answers, the jiva is bound by Maya, has five conditions. There is a jiva with consciousness completely covered, intoxicated, the jiva with restricted consciousness, businessman, with budding consciousness, starting to realize there's something beyond this world, with blossoming consciousness, developing Krishna consciousness, and fully blossoming consciousness. It's interesting. So in other words, there's five different basic conditions. Of course, uh, there's all sorts of variety in between these different conditions because of the type of classification that's given by the Babaji. Rajan said, what type of jivas are covered in consciousness? So he's describing examples of this. Becoming trees, grass, or entering stones indicates jivas with covered consciousness. These are jivas with covered, or someone who's drunk, same thing, or someone who's naked. Prabhupada said they could become trees like Manigriva Nalakuvara. Their consciousness is almost undetectable. Actually, with a tree, the consciousness is detectable, but it takes some time. Uh, you don't see it immediately. They don't just like turn around and start dancing or anything like that. Neither does a drunk person who's unconscious. Forgetting service to Krishna, completely absorbed in the material gunas of Maya, they do not show evidence of their conscious nature. A trace of what they were previously remains by the fact that they undergo six transformations. Those six transformations are birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts, dissolution, and death. We went over that in the previous class. So the tree is born from a seed or transplanted from a branch or something like that. Then he grows or she grows. This female trees. And then the tree maintains itself, produces more seeds. Then after that, the tree starts to decay or whatever. And then the tree dies after some time. This is the lowest state for the jiva. If one examines the uh, Puranic stories of Ahalya, she was cursed to be a stone. And sometimes some stories are she was cursed to become a ghost. But anyway, the Yamala Arjuna trees, that's Manigriva Dalakuvara, and the Sapta Tala trees, one can understand. The Sapta Tala trees are the trees that Lord Ramchandra, in displaying his ability with his bow and arrow, was able to shoot an arrow through all of them. And later on, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent these trees back to the spiritual world. So that's really covered consciousness. By particular offense, these jivas attained these destinations. Interesting. By offenses, one takes the body of a tree. Wow. By Krishna's mercy, they delivered from this condition. And Rajanath asked another question about the second category. Who are the jivas with restricted consciousness? Babaji said jivas with restricted consciousness are animals, birds, reptiles, fish, and insects. The consciousness of covered jivas is almost not detectable. The jivas with restricted consciousness show consciousness to a small degree. I know people like that. They eat, sleep, experience fear, go here and there, and there, but here and there by their desire. They quarrel with others over property and seeing injustice become angry. There's many human beings in that level of consciousness, especially the people very much inclined towards sex. They have no awareness of life after death. In the intelligence of monkeys, one sees a small capacity to deliberate with higher intellect. They think of what will happen or not happen in the future. One sees evidence of gratitude in them also. Some animals have knowledge of the qualities of various objects, but they do not search for the Lord. Thus they have restricted consciousness. It is narrated in the scriptures that when Bharata obtained the body of a deer, he still had knowledge of the name of the Lord. That is a special case, not the ordinary rule. By offense, Bharata and Riga became animals. Riga became like a lizard. By the mercy of the Lord, their offense was destroyed, and they again attained a good destination. Here's the next category. Rajnath said, what are the jivas with budding consciousness? Babaji said the jivas with human bodies have three states: budding consciousness, blossoming consciousness, and fully blossomed consciousness. One can divide humans into five types: immoral humans, that's pretty easy to understand, atheists with morals, theists with morals, devotees practicing sadhana, and devotees who have attained bhava. It's interesting. Five different categories. You'll hear this again and again in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings. There's five different categories of human beings. Let's go through them again. Immoral humans, or amoral humans, same thing. Atheists without morals, with morals, sorry. Atheists with morals. Theists with morals. Devotees practicing sadhana, and devotees who have attained bhava. Because of ignorance or because of the distortion of knowledge, a human being becomes atheistic. They may be either immoral or moral. When a human develops slight faith in the Lord along with the morals, he becomes a theistic moralist. Those who are inclined to sadhana bhakti follow scriptural rules are the devotees following sadhana. Those who have developed raga to a slight degree for the Lord are bhava bhaktas. In other words, even if we've developed a little attachment for the Lord raga, then we'd be considered bhava bhaktas. Immoral humans and atheist moralists have budding consciousness. Theistic humans with morals and sadhana bhaktas have blossoming consciousness. Bhava bhaktas have fully blossomed consciousness. Interesting. Brajna said, how long does the Bhava bhakta remain bound by Maya? Babaji said, I will give the answer in considering the seventh verse. Night has fallen. Please return home. Thinking and thinking. Rajanath returned home. Interesting discussion here. We'll go on for a little while longer because in the airport, probably disturbing people. Anyway, they're getting purified. But chapter 17, you get more into the story of Rajanath and him not wanting to get married, and finally, this is what happens. This is such an interesting story. Should I leave this for tomorrow? Yeah, I think I should leave this story for tomorrow because it's really, you should tell the whole thing in one day. I don't want to start the story and leave you brokenhearted. But this is such an interesting arrangement to detach Rajanath from his family members. It's such a, anyway, it's an amazing story. Chapter 17, the liberated Jiva. So we'll start that tomorrow. We're going to end early because the airport here, it's not the best place to give a class, but I think everyone can hear. So we can take some questions from all of you. Let me allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay, who has a question? You can raise your hand if you like, or unmute yourself, or type in the text window. This next, tune in tomorrow. This next story is really interesting. Interesting story. It's some philosophy, but the story itself is really very, very, very interesting and instructive. So, who has a question? So, Bhai Chaitanya, you have a question.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Just a very quick question. Didn't quite understand the how Babaji explained the dua, instigating and and then direct cause. Could you just elaborate on
Yeah,
that for me,
okay.
please?
All right. It says that Krishna is the instigating cause. So, to instigate something means to basically tell them to do it. Like if I say, for example, cook some prasadam for me. So I've instigated. I've started. Let me give a definition of instigation right now. Go to the internet, handy dandy dictionary. Definition. Instigate means to start an action instigate someone. Here's an instigate someone to do something. Instigate someone to do something. Especially, well, here's this especially bad, but also good. Instigate. So I'm encouraging, instigate, incite. Reason that one definition is incite someone to do something. So that's Krishna. Krishna is the instigating cause, according to the definition here, and according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Krishna is the instigating cause of action, but Krishna instigates according to our desire. Let's say if I want to enjoy in a gross bodily way, or whatever, which I don't. Let's give it settled. I don't want to talk about gross bodies here. So if I want to enjoy in a very subtle way, like material energy and feel happy and uh, peaceful and everything like that, Krishna will instigate me to climb a mountain or something like that. He'll give me the intelligence, the enthusiasm to do it, the strength to do it. And so that's what it means by Krishna's the instigating cause. I am the cause, the actual direct cause, because it's my desire that Krishna instigated me, and I also agreed to be instigated. For example,
Yeah.
again, if I say to you, uh, please cook some, let's say something, what can I eat? Some broccoli. Please cook some broccoli. It sounds pretty boring. Uh, please cook some broccoli for me. I, you know, anyway, let me try and think of this example again. Yeah, because I've instigated you to perform that action. Like you just, all right, not a complete good metaphor, but let's say if you desire, or Guru Maharaj, I want to serve you and do what you want. So that's your desire. So then I'm going to give you the instruction or instigation or the intelligence how to do it. You go to the pressure cooker, whatever. Anyway, so it's
Okay.
pretty bad
No,
metaphor.
no.
But in any
Yeah.
case, the jiva soul is the primary one, primary cause. But his desire is really what's
Yeah.
causing the particular type of instigation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does go there, which is so it makes sense that therefore the karma attaches to the jiva soul
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
a
Krishna's
direct
just giving
cause.
you what you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Krishna gives you a rope and lets you hang yourself with it
Yeah.
because of the free will. If
Yeah.
Krishna didn't do that, there wouldn't be any free will. If Krishna
Yeah.
didn't facilitate your rascal desires, then there wouldn't be any free will.
Thank you, Gurudev. Thank you for explaining it, Haribol.
Gopal send me a message. I'll contact you, Gopal, because he wants to know when I arrive. Uh, yeah, Krishna inspires us. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The point is that Krishna inspires us. Instigate can mean inspire, uh, incite someone to do something, inspire someone to do something because of our desire. And in that form, he's the Paramatma. Yeah, the Paramatma, obviously. That's how Krishna does it, as the Paramatma. Yeah. So we have another question from Divine Justice. Okay.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, thank you for class. I was wondering what's the difference between a sadhana bhakta and I think it was Bhagava bhakta?
Bhava Bhakta. Okay, that's good.
Bhava bhakta.
There's different stages in the progress of devotional service that are listed in the Nectar of Devotion. Sadhana basically means practice. That's the first stage. Practice, even that stage is broken up into two parts. One is the practice according to just following the rules and regulations. And the second part of sadhana is practice, but really wanting to do it spontaneously. Okay. And then bhava, the second platform after sadhana, which means to experience different emotions that are described in the Nectar and Devotion by Srila Prabhupada. We find these different emotions described, not only the emotions themselves, but the result of those emotions and that which inspires those emotions. And there's technical words for all these things. So that's bhava, like emotions. Bhava, the word bhava means emotions. And then the higher stage is what prema bhakti. That's pure love. So in other words, first there's practice, then you get all these emotions and ecstasies, and then and all their constituent parts, and then finally you get pure love. So there's different stages. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the question. And finally, Adi Dave.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dhanot Pranam, Yeshua Prabhupada.
How you
So
go?
we were reading in the consciousness, right? 5 types of consciousness.
Yeah.
And the final consciousness, a fully bloomed consciousness. So
Yeah.
it is mentioned in the text that whoever is the jiva caught by Maya has these 5 kinds of consciousness.
Yeah. Well, I guess the 5 types of consciousness are just, not. I can see from the context that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's 5 types of consciousness are related to the conditioned jiva, one who is not yet liberated.
Okay.
According to this, I mean, originally I thought I had the impression the 5th type, fully blossomed would be, Haribol.
Jivan Mukta.
Yeah, Jivan Mukta, that would be. But according to this, the going back, that the even the fully blossomed would have to be affected to a certain extent, or not controlled precisely, but affected to a certain extent by the modes.
Maya.
Yeah, was the modes.
So
Bhava Bhakti is, because Bhava is like an intermediate stage before Prema. So that's fully
my question,
blossomed. So they can be fully blossomed without being absolutely pure, according to the context here.
Okay. Still some metal contamination, still another control of Maya. That means,
Well, let's say they could be free of an like according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's analysis, they could be free of anarthas, but not absolutely free of anarthas. You know the distinction?
yes, yeah.
The absolutely free means if they're like okay, let's give you the example of Bart Maharaj. You could say that Bart Maharaj was in the fully blossomed stage of consciousness, but because he was not attentive, properly attentive, then it came back.
Right. The seeds are not completely burnt.
Yeah. Well, no. You could say the seeds are burnt, but one's not. When one is actually free of anarthas, the seeds are burnt. But if one's not attentive or not fully on the stage of prema, there's danger.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Follow-up question, Gurudev. So all these 5 consciousness are under the control of Maya.
Yeah.
So when the pralaya happens, like the final destruction happens, and all the jivas enter into the body of Mahavishnu, there is no consciousness, right?
That's right.
There is no consciousness. Any of these 5 consciousness.
No. Those only manifest in the jiva within this material world in a material body.
So, okay, they are like completely like in
inert.
coma,
Like suspended animation. There's no consciousness because there's no, the symptom of a conscious entity is, as described previously, the 6 different stages. Remember the 6 stages? Birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts, dissolution, death.
Okay.
And
So
when those symptoms, the symptoms actually occur even within the entities of fully covered consciousness, like the trees.
okay.
So in the Brahmajyoti or in the when one not merges, but enters the body of the Mahavishnu, then there's no symptoms. And there's no birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts, dissolution, or death.
So you can say, someone can say that consciousness is a material, right? In that sense, it's a material thing, consciousness,
Now, consciousness is not material.
because it's absent
It's
in.
always there, but sometimes it's so covered that it's just as if it was in the Brahmajyoti.
Oh, okay.
Or
In the
it's for all intents and purposes, it's not manifest.
okay.
Your consciousness does not come from a combination of matter. Consciousness is covered, but when the living entity enters the body of the Mahavishnu, then there's no question of manifestation of consciousness. But in the fully covered consciousness in the material world, there is some manifestation of consciousness. Like the trees, and the trees, they respond to sunlight, for example, and they actually take their leaves and can face them in the direction of the sunlight. I mean, that's a standard thing. And then also, Robert quotes Alexander. What does that know? The Bose. He quotes Bose, who did some experimentations with plants, and he actually saw the plants would respond to stimuli.
Right.
So there's some consciousness. Fully covered doesn't mean no consciousness. It means there's some, like, really, if I go back to the text, which I'm going to read right now, let's go all the way to that. All the way back to fully covered. A trace becoming trees, grass, or entering stones indicates views with covered consciousness. Their
Okay.
consciousness is almost, he says, their consciousness is almost undetectable. Use the word almost. So with the proper scientific instruments, or just observation over some time, you can actually see some conscious behavior. I mean, for example, trees and plants respond to music. If you play some nice music, the plants will grow better. And
Right.
if you play some modern music, the plants will be stunted. I mean, there's been many studies about the growth of plants and music.
So that is all material consciousness, right, Gurudev? It's all
Yeah.
material consciousness.
No, that's material consciousness, but the material consciousness is just the covered consciousness of the soul. That means they're completely covered. The word here is covered.
Okay.
You understand? Covered. In other words, the consciousness is always there, but it's covered.
Okay. Okay. Fully blossomed.
Yeah, it's covered.
It's
Fully
a
blossomed.
degree of covering, basically. It's a degree of covering.
That's really what we're talking about. Consciousness is always there. You can't take away the consciousness of the jiva. It just becomes covered. Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses the term covered.
So since in the body of the Mahavishnu, since there is no matter, so consciousness is kind of inert. It's
Inert.
Yeah.
It's inert. It's a type of covering, but it's inert.
Yeah. Okay.
Also in the Brahmajyoti, it's the same thing.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Guru. Thank you so much, Gurudev.
All right. Haribo. Nice to hear from everybody. So here's another question. Let's see. It's about Dharma stage. Yeah. So Maharaj, the consciousness is hibernating. That's good. At that time, Mahavishnu entry. And manifests again when creation starts. Similar to Jiva carrying the subtle body until it's liberated. Please correct. Yeah. Jiva, the subtle body actually carries the soul rather than the Jiva carrying the subtle body. I mean, it's different ways of expression. Yeah. The subtle body filters the consciousness, the different manifestations or the contamination of the subtle body. Depending on it's also depending on the samskaras or the impressions that the subtle body has. That's why we have different samskaras. We try to uncover the consciousness. We have the Garbhadhan samskara, Namakarana. I mean, so many different samskaras. I don't know all the samskaras. Okay, I think it's time to end. Actually, we've been quite a long time. So thank you very much. All glories to His